This happened years ago. I think I was about 16 years old. Back then, 16-year-olds could buy alcohol and cigarettes in the Netherlands, where I'm from. It was a Friday night, and I was on my way to a friend's house, cycling as we do in the Netherlands. I took a detour. I wanted to buy a few beers, snacks, and cigarettes at the local supermarket. As I walk into the supermarket, a man, I think 50 years old, walks out. As we walk past each other, he looks at me and says, "Wow." I think nothing of it, do the shopping, pay, and walk out. I do not know what the exact word is in English for those bins where you put old clothes in. The clothes are sent to Goodwill or poor countries, but the same guy from before was standing behind that bin. He was sitting on his bike, looking at me. It was getting dark, streets were deserted, and I still had a 10-minute cycle ahead of me. I got this bad feeling about it, so I unlocked my bike and started cycling. This is when the bad feeling proved to be justified. As soon as I started cycling, that man started cycling as well. He catches up with me, and the conversation goes as follows. Man: "Hi, where are you going?" Me: "I'm going to hang out at a friend's house." Man: "Where does he live?" Me, trying to make him feel like I'm almost there. Just a minute from here." Man: "Can I accompany you there?" Me: "No thanks." As I said that, he grabs my bicycle handles and pulls me closer. I almost fell over, regain my balance, and kick his bike. I started cycling as fast as I can, and he does as well, yelling at me. I arrive at my friend's house after what feels like an eternity. Unfortunately, my friend lives in a flat, so I have to ring the doorbell so he can buzz open the door. As I'm ringing the doorbell frantically, the man just stands a few meters behind me, waiting. I hear my friend asking who's there over the intercom. I scream and cry, telling him to let me in, and he does. Luckily, my friends are all very big, scary-looking guys. They heard the panic in my voice, and as they see me as their younger sister, came down with chairs, ashtrays, and other makeshift weapons. Unfortunately, the guy had already left. I didn't want my friends to hurt him, just scare him. I am 8 years older now, but I am still scared I will meet another person like that man. This happened a few years ago. I was about 19 to 20. I'm a female, 25. I grew up in Cyprus, but after high school I decided to move back with my dad, and he lives in Monterrey, Mexico. This city is usually pretty safe to live in, but as many people know, Mexico still has the cartels, and although they usually leave normal people alone, sometimes you have some unwanted encounters. The story begins in a nail salon. I was getting my nails and toes done, and I had walked to the salon since it was only a few blocks away and the day was nice. Besides, I would spare a few bucks since at that time I didn't drive, and I would have had to take a cab. When they finished up my nails, and after I pay, I start walking back home, and I have to take a street that is on a slope. Not steep at all. At the end of the street, there's a very old church. I've been down this street many times. There's houses and small daycare, nothing scary at all. Not even at night. As I'm walking, I notice that there are no cars at all, and this street is usually pretty busy, but I think nothing of it. And I keep walking since this is a pretty long street and I just want to get home. Out of nowhere, a black pickup truck cuts me off while I am crossing from one sidewalk to the next. The windows were blacked out, which in my city is actually legal, so I immediately knew who the car belonged to. I felt my body temperature drop and my heart sank. I'm not that tall, about 5'3", and despite the fact that I'm on the heavier side, I'm not that strong either, so fighting this unknown person was not an option because of what I've experienced and because this person probably had a gun on them or several. I started looking around frantically, trying to think of a way out without getting hurt to avoid this person from following me. At this point, not even a minute had passed by. The driver hadn't even put his window down yet, but I was terrified. Then it happened. The driver rolled down the window to reveal a man in what I assume were his early 40s. My heart was racing even faster at this point. He was wearing sunglasses and had a disgusting smirk on his face. I could tell he was looking up and down at me. My stomach turned and I could feel more adrenaline running through my body, but I was frozen in place. "Do you want to be my friend?" he asked. I was totally out of it, as if this man had just spoken to me in a different language, but in my state of confusion, I managed to blurt out, "What? I'm looking for friends. Do you want me to give you a ride? You look pretty today." I was wearing sweats. No way I look pretty. Then after he said that, I am not sure what came over me, but I just ran. No, I sprinted faster than I have ever had in my life. I was crying too, and I could feel the hot tears running down my face. I didn't stop. I took other streets, back streets. I just basically went in a zigzag all through the neighborhood area until I got to my dad's house, and I just dropped on the front patio. I cried hard and loud. I have never been so scared in my life. My dad was coming back from the gym, so I knew it was around 7:30 p.m. My dad asked me what was wrong and I told him, so he helped me up and just took me inside. He told me he was proud because I at least ran. He installed cameras all over the house outside the next day. I can never walk down that street alone again. This happened in 2017 in Uppsala, Sweden. I, 21 female, was going home around 4 a.m. I was drunk, so I pushed my bike for a while, then decided I could try riding. I know it's dangerous. I got on, pedaled maybe 20 feet, and tumbled off. So I decided to keep walking until I felt ready to try again. At this point, I was adjacent to the Uppsala Cemetery, which is large and beautiful and very, very creepy in the dark. It has entrances on all sides, and I had to go around it, or through, but I didn't want to get home. I kept on walking, trying to sober up enough to ride home since I was a long way. After a few minutes, I tried again, and fell again. I picked myself up a second time and noticed my keys were not in my bike basket, where I had drunkenly tossed them. That meant they were back a ways, where I had fallen earlier. I turned myself and my bike around to retrieve them and noticed a figure in a red raincoat standing at the northern mouth of the cemetery. His red raincoat stood out clearly, since behind him was just darkness and a bit of brick wall. At first he didn't strike me as weird. The area is close to downtown and all the nightlife. I went around the cemetery and back to my first fall site, where I found my keys laying in the grass. I was now near the eastern entrance. I laid my bike down, bent to gather the keys, and then I felt an arm around me. It was the red raincoat. He had his arm tight around my shoulders and was pulling me away from my bike towards the cemetery. Suddenly, I was terrified. I started yelling at him to leave me alone, but he wouldn't. He just kept talking to me in a low voice and trying to pull me towards the cemetery away from my bike. I kept yelling at him and trying to shake him off of me. He eventually crossed the street, picked up his own bike and left. I thought that would be the last time I saw him. I was suddenly a lot more sober, so I rode home by my usual route. As I rode, I tried to clear my head and wondered if I had just freaked out on an innocent bystander who may have been trying to help me. Just before my apartment, there was a kind of foresty bit with benches along the bike path, beautiful in the light. I passed one of those bench spots and there was a red raincoat. I noticed him half a second before he reached out for me and managed to swerve to avoid him. His fingers grabbed at my right shoulder as I passed. If I hadn't swerved, he almost certainly would have pulled me off my bike into the bushes that lined the path. I rode totally sober now, terrified that red raincoat would be following me. He had a bike too. Thankfully, I saw no more of them then or to my knowledge ever. I lived on a 4th floor, but I bolted my windows shut that night. I still wondered if that person really had malicious intent or if I just raged drunkly at a helpful stranger. But I don't truly believe that. Fear sent me flying home that night, stone cold, sober. They were not a friend. On Mobile Alert, this is a long one, but has a nice juicy end. When I was 19 years old, some random dude in his mid-20s added me on Facebook. We didn't have a lot of friends in common, and I had never seen him before. But I still accepted the request because back then I was too young and stupid, and I'd basically accept any stranger who looked like an actual person and not some fake profile. Within minutes of accepting him, let's call him Jay, he sent me an inbox. It was not the typical, "Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for accepting me" message. This one gave me the creeps. He basically asks, "Hey, are you organizatrix? The girl who lives next to such and such bakery." But my family had moved out from there when I was 16. Who has such and such car? A car that my mom sold when I was 11, went to such and such high school, and was friends with such and such group of girls. Yes, he got those details from my past, right? But I had no clue who this dude was. I went through his photos and was pretty certain I hadn't seen him before. Why the hell did he know all these things, especially about the car my mom had sold 9 years ago? Before we even moved into the house, he mentioned where we didn't even live in anymore. And the girls he mentioned, I wasn't friends with since the 9th grade. So, this is what happened. Me. Who are you and why do you have such outdated information about me? Jay. Plays mysterious for a while and finally says this: "My parents own a bakery next to your house." Me. "Then you should know I haven't lived there for years. But that doesn't explain how you know about a car we had before I moved next to the bakery, and who I used to be friends with in middle school. How would you know about that? That's creepy." Jay. "Don't get alarmed. My younger brother Sam went to school with you. That's how I know." Okay, so Sam was a bully and an abuser. I hated him since the time he slapped my ass in the 8th grade while we were doing a group project at a girl's house. And then he ran to his bike and rode away before I could do anything about it. He was gross, and I would constantly make remarks about my boobs and ass. I was an early bloomer. Anyways, Jay didn't go to our same school, so why was he so attentive to what his brother's classmates did? I got creeped out and stopped replying to his messages after that conversation. I unfriended him, and about 1 or 2 months after that, a girl I know asked if a friend and I wanted to go clubbing with her and her friends. Legal age in Mexico is 18. We agreed and she picked us up at my place a week later. When we got to the club, she disclosed the reason she invited us. One of her guy friends had been dying to meet me, and she arranged this outing so we could meet. She didn't say this up front because she knew I wouldn't have accepted the invitation. So, she decided to wait until we were already at the club to tell me. I got a bit pissed about it, but I was already there and decided to have fun. However, the fun hit a hard stop a few minutes later when she introduced Jay as the guy who wanted to meet me. I didn't like this one bit and told her that guy had creeped on me when he added me on Facebook and that I didn't feel comfortable there. She downplayed it and said meeting him wouldn't hurt nobody, that he was a good guy, plus he was very splendid and always paid for everything. He did pay the drinks for all 9 of us that night, which is why I suspect she liked to hang out with him and had no issues arranging the blind date. At the end, it wasn't that bad, mainly because he didn't speak to me all night. He did stare at me all the time, but never approached me, so it only made it uncomfortable but not unbearable. I asked her to please not do this again and to not give him my number or anything. Well, it was too late. She already did. Over the next few weeks, he proceeded to text me all sorts of weird things and invite me out every other day. Half the time I didn't reply. The other half I would reject his invitations. He would call me from the time to time, but I didn't pick up if I knew it was him. The break point was a day when he called me from a different number. I picked up and he asked me out again. I lied and said I couldn't because I was at a friend's house doing a group project. He said, "That's not true. I just saw you pull into your house 5 minutes ago." Which was true. What the fuck? How did he know where I lived? Why would he just be sitting outside my house keeping track when I got home? Then call me from a new number so I'd pick up and he could ask me out? I freaking lost it. I started yelling at him. I told him that he was a creep and asked him to never contact me again. Unfortunately, technology was not very advanced back then and my cell phone didn't have the option to block a number. So I kept getting random text until I changed phones. The creepiest one I remember is him saying he went to visit some friends in Mexico City, that he told them all about me and they couldn't wait to meet me, and that he had just the most perfect little house where we could live together once we got married and have kids. Delusional much. Anyways, at age 21, I moved to a different house and nobody who knew him knew my new address. So I was on the clear. But about a year later, we coincided in traffic. And I bet he had noticed I had moved out because he started following me until I pulled up to a random driveway and pretended that it was my new home. He then drove past very slowly as if he was memorizing my new address, and then kept driving to whatever he was heading to. At age 23, I went to a party at a stranger's house. I was having a good old time until Jay arrived. He looked at me, freaked out, and started yelling in front of a bunch of people. Jay: "What are you doing at my home?" Me: "Your home? Isn't this Vic's house?" Jay: "Vic is my roomie. Now get out of my house. You're not welcome here." One of his friends approached him to ask what was wrong and try to calm him down, but his response was priceless and still very loud. Jay: "Do you know who that is? That's Organizatrix, the witch I've told you about. She cast a spell on me that made me love her for years. She does voodoo or some shit. She's probably here to claim more samples to make a new doll of me or something. Get her out of here now." I bursted out laughing, went to get my purse and left. I thankfully never saw him again.